Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Thompson, I want to focus him back in on the enhanced oil recovery. You aware that earlier this year there was an amendment on the floor that was adopted by Congressman Conley that cut the research funding in the enhanced oil recovery?
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so when we hear the folks on the other side talking about this, if we know this is going to be part of the solution, this is where we need to be focusing on, but yet all these members, and Mr. Doyle is one of them, that voted to cut the funding. I find that very interesting. But let me build on that just a little bit. In fact, all the Democrats did. If the oil industry, because I'm somewhat aware of this process, so if the oil industry finds this as a possibility of an increased recovery, instead of, well, how many of them are contributing from the oil industry? How many of them are contributing to the carbon capture research so that would enable that to occur, to provide them with a supply of material? Are any oil companies contributing to the CCS research?
Sure, Shell, among others, is.
Do you have numbers for that? How much? Are they contributing $1 million, or are they contributing hundreds of millions of dollars?
No, I don't. But what I'd be happy to do is after the hearing.
I'd like to understand more about where
I'd be happy to respond.
Because if they're going to be the ones who are going to benefit from this, I think they are the ones who should be contributing the money for it. Let's go back now to Dr. Lashoff. I'm just curious. It was touched on just a minute ago about the CO2 emissions. Are you aware that the CO2 emissions across North America are down down to a low that hasn't been seen in 20 years?
Yes, I am. I published a report on that a month or so ago.
And so with that, you think we ought to go we need to continue this message, this fight?
Well, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is 25% higher than it was in the year I was born, with 1959. And what we need to do is stabilize that level. The U.S. needs to reduce further. Certainly China and India also need to reduce. The U.S. has to provide leadership.
Because what you're saying is it's the main culprit. I think I heard you say that it's the main culprit of global warming.
Carbon dioxide traps heat in the atmosphere. It would be remarkable if it weren't causing global warming, and in fact, we're seeing global warming.
So you disagree with Dr. Lewis, Hal Lewis, when he resigned from his position with the American Physicists Society, when he said this is the greatest pseudoscience fraud perpetrated on America?
Yeah, I totally disagree with that.
I would assume you do. But I think several others have joined him in resigning with it, but because there are other scientists that disagree with you on that this is being used for other purposes. So I look at what Hal Lewis has said, and if you look back at the Milankovitch, the Serbian physicist back in the last century, that by virtue of his own studies, has predicted that this is what was going to happen at this time in our history. Are you aware of that?
I am. Look, scientists will always disagree with each other. That's what they do. That's how they make a living, is writing papers to disagree with other scientists. If we predicated policy on unanimity among scientists on any issue, we would never do anything.
Do you recognize, too, that National Geographic just came out with a study that says we're just coming out of an ice age, a mini ice age, and therefore we should be expecting higher temperatures today?
I haven't seen that particular National Geographic article, but the fact is that the amount of heat trapping, that the excess CO2 that we put into the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels is now a much bigger factor in influencing the Earth's climate than the Milankovitch cycles and what we've had historically. We've entered a new era that many scientists call the...
So my point here is, given that there's not unanimity, and I remember earlier last year when Lisa Jackson came before us, she said, it's all been decided. That global warming is anthropogenic. Global warming is man-made cause, and it's CO2 driven. That there is no argument anymore. But you also just acknowledged that that's not. That the science is still up in the air over that issue. So I accept that there is not a lack of unanimity on it, because what we're about to do here is allow the EPA to impose a regulation. That's the purpose of my bill, was wait, just hold back. If we had the scientific ways of doing it, then to go ahead and implement it. But when we don't have the technology available, let's hold back, because there's enough evidence that possibly CO2 is not contributing to as much of the problem as you're suggesting that it is.
Well,
so let's just hold back. I'm over my
Mr.
time.
McKinley, if I can just answer quickly. I don't agree that the science is up in the air. I said that there's not unanimity among scientists, and there won't be. But the National Academy of Science said that the idea that carbon dioxide is contributing to climate change is as well proven as gravity, and I think that's a strong basis for making policy.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 5 minutes.
Could you recognize someone from the minority and then come back to me? Is that possible, Mr. Chairman?
The gentleman yields back. Will you wait? Okay.
I can, yeah. Yields back. Okay, well,
He needs to be recognized. Mr. Chairman, will the gentleman yield for 30 seconds?
no, well, I'm ready to go. If the gentleman, if the minority does, the majority rather, if the majority does not have a need to have the time. So here's what I would say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's what I would say, that coal has dropped from 51% of electrical generation down to 35% over the last 5 years. But there's a concomitant trend as well, which is in operating simultaneously, which is that natural gas has risen from 21% to 30%. So there's a war between fossil fuels going on in our country right now. By the way, the same thing is happening on home heating oil in New England. The market for home heating oil is collapsing as the price of natural gas is rising. Now, why is that? Because natural gas is so much less expensive than home heating oil. The price of natural gas has collapsed in terms of